Well, it's a pleasure to talk with you all today. I would say that we've got quite a bit of ground to cover today. Please understand that the slides have more content than we're actually going to cover in the presentation. I do that so that you'll have the presentation as a tool to look to for further information after the presentation. I think one theme that may not be obvious in our discussion today, and one of my goals, is to talk about job security, and that is job security for managers who are the proponents of cloud engagements. And what I'm talking about are the many situations that we have seen in which managers have been placed in very difficult positions because they have caused their organizations, notwithstanding their best efforts, to be saddled with cloud contracts that cannot be terminated, even for potentially very poor performance. Cloud agreements that have little or no performance guarantees, cloud agreements involving the hosting of very sensitive information, yet do not have much in the way of security protections and virtually no vendor responsibility, even if the vendor commits to security protections but then breaches them. And so what we're talking about is making sure that all the relevant stakeholders in a business understand the risks and benefits of a cloud engagement so that appropriate decisions can be made and that senior managers can assess the risk presented by an engagement and make an informed decision. And I think one of the challenges for the people within organizations that negotiate and are proponents of cloud engagements and senior management is the problem of ensuring that they have communicated properly with senior management the particular risks of the engagement. And whenever I think about those communications to senior management, the first thing that comes to my mind is goldfish. And that is the BBC did a study not long ago, and because of the internet, email, tweets, RSS feeds, blogs, etc., they found in that study that the average attention span of a human adult is just 9 seconds before they're diverted to some other thing that they are trying to focus on. And that's the exact same attention span as the average goldfish. And so when talking with business executives about these types of issues, I keep that in mind because we're talking about very busy people who have many, many things on their plate. They have short attention spans for, most everything, and you want to make sure that you've conveyed to them what it is about this transaction that is beneficial to the organization, but also what things in this transaction present risks to the organization so that a balancing can be made and a right decision can be made about the transaction, and that the manager can feel as though they have done what they need to do to make sure the company is protected. Why am I being so careful about this? What is different than standard technology transactions? The problem is that a transaction in the cloud presents unique risks, and we're going to be talking about those things in the context of this webinar. But I think it is important to distinguish because we are seeing a number of alarming trends in the cloud industry, and we're actually going to talk about those trends in just a few minutes. I think as a sort of final preliminary comment about cloud engagements, the challenge of most of these transactions is trying to line up the expectations of both sides, that is the vendor and also the customer. Customers love the idea of cloud computing because it provides, among other things, and we'll touch on this a little bit more in a moment, it provides the ability to get commodity pricing, which means that the company itself doesn't necessarily have to invest in the infrastructure to host locally installed software and to maintain that software. They can do all of that in the cloud. If they want to greatly increase their usage of the cloud services, they don't have to engage in a major infrastructure investment, but rather, in many instances, just need to pay for additional seat licenses from the cloud provider. This is all terrific and is exactly what the cloud is good at, and it can result in substantial cost savings. So this is a very good thing, and so customers like that quite a bit. The problem is customers don't like the idea of commodity contract terms. And so one of the misalignments that frequently is encountered as far as expectations is that many customers believe that even in relatively small cloud engagements, they want to be able to fully negotiate the contract, impose terms on the vendor. And the problem with that is that in many cases, it defeats the whole sort of overarching principle of cloud computing, which is one size more or less fits all. And of course, there are exceptions. But it is difficult for a vendor to commit to 2,000 different service levels with 2,000 different customers. There needs to be generally one service level for all customers. And so it is in many instances unrealistic for a customer to come in and say, yes, I know that you're offering availability of 99.5% to all of your other customers. We want 99.99, and we want special response times on support calls. And again, it may be impossible for a vendor to administer that. In contrast, vendors frequently have unreasonable expectations as to the level of risk that their customers will accept. For example, hosting very, very sensitive information, yet not being willing to assume any real responsibility if the security of that information is compromised. And so much in the way of trying to align expectations of the parties to try to reach an agreement which is appropriate for the particular transaction. And I think that is a very key principle that customers and vendors both must try to understand the other side's concerns entering into these transactions to ensure that there is some sort of meeting of the minds and that expectations are synced up. A quick overview of how we'll proceed. We're going to talk for just a moment or two about the sort of overall risks and benefits of cloud engagements, but I won't dwell too much on that. We're then going to focus on unique issues, and as I mentioned, some alarming trends in cloud computing, and we'll spend a number of minutes talking about those trends. And then we'll turn to sort of the meat of the conversation. I've picked out a number of key topics in cloud computing that come up all the time. Of course, SLAs, information security, liability, those sorts of things are among the issues that we're going to be talking about. And then we're also going to allow some time at the end for questions. Happy to respond to them. Also, my contact information is available. If there's a question that we don't get answered during the presentation, please do not hesitate to contact me. I'd be happy to respond. So let's dive into the presentation proper. Overall risks of cloud computing. The customer is potentially losing control over the operation of the relevant software, its infrastructure, and the most obvious, of course, is control potentially over their data. And that can be very troubling. It also can be a good thing because a customer may not have great information security measures of their own. They may not have a great IT infrastructure, and so partnering with a responsible cloud provider may be the best thing for them. They may actually have greater control in these situations because they have a vendor whose entire business is devoted to information security and the operation of reliable systems. And so whereas these are risks about a customer losing control, they can also be benefits of a cloud computing engagement. There are, this graphic basically shows the sort of balancing as to risk, and the sort of key considerations are how critical is the process or thing that we are putting in the cloud. Is it our billing application to send out invoices to customers? If it is a financial services company, is it a trading platform for securities, which is the heart of an organization? And the other balancing topic is, what is the sensitivity of the data being placed in the cloud? And this is actually a common area of confusion. Some companies